Hi, today I'll be talking about the conflict resolution for Groups 5's presentation. The case study is as followed. You're a new nurse working on a busy medical surgical floor. The mode of patient care delivery used on the unit is team nursing. You have grown increasingly frustrated, however, with the licensed practical nurse (LPN) on your team who is unwilling to answer call lights. You have directly observed her ignore call lights and go out of her way to avoid answering the lights. When you confront her, she always provides an excuse, such as she was on her way to do something for another patient or that she did not notice the blinking call light. The end result is that you must often run from one end of the hall to another to answer the call lights because patient safety could be at risk. Your frustration level has risen to the point that you no longer wish to work with this person. So, how would we know when to, as a manager, intervene? We have determined that before a manager should attempt to intervene, they should assess the 5 stages of conflict. The 5 stages include Stage 1, known as latent conflict. This is where conflict may occur due to a change as a pay cut or short staffing, but no problem or conflict has yet to occur. Stage 2 is known as perceived and is often intellectualized and involves roles and issues. Luckily, in this stage, the conflict may be able to be resolved before the conflict becomes internalized or felt. Stage 3 is known as felt conflict, when the conflict becomes emotionalized. The 4th stage is manifest and overt conflict, which we have chosen as our time to intervene during this certain case. And lastly, stage 5 is known as conflict aftermath, and this can be a positive or negative effect, just however the conflict has played out. Next, the conflict category you can see falls between 2 employees, the LPN and the other nurse, which is categorized as an interpersonal conflict since it's between the 2 people. The 2 employees have different goals and beliefs on what they feel is important, which is causing conflict to arise. So this is role incompatibility. The 2 employees just aren't getting along and they do not have a common set goal. When we look back at the conflict stage that the 2 employees are in, since the coworkers have discussed the problem at hand and it has gotten to the point where the other employee no longer wants to work with this person, the conflict is now into the felt conflict stage since there are emotions involved with the thought of quitting their job. So what is the goal here? Since the conflict has gotten to a personal and felt level, we need to create a goal to solve the problem. Our goal is to create a win-win situation for both employees. And we can do this by developing resolution that ensures that the patients are safe, make sure both coworkers are heard fairly, identify why the LPN is neglecting call lights, develop a plan that takes the load off the nurse having to respond to her patients and the LPN's patients. So what kind of conflict resolutions do we have? Let's look at the common types. The first is compromising, which is when each party gives up something they want. Competing is one party wants to pursue what it wants at the expense of others, so they don't really care what happens to other people. Cooperating and accommodating, which is opposite of competing. One party sacrifices his or her beliefs and allows the other party to win. Next is smoothing, which focuses on agreements rather than differences. Avoiding, which would be parties involved are aware of conflict but choose not to acknowledge it or attempt to resolve it. And lastly is collaborating, which is a win-win situation. So, what do we think our conflict fell under? As previously stated, our primary goal was to create a win-win solution for everyone involved, which would lead us to choose collaborating as our strategy. We can do this to achieve this goal. Both employees need to set aside their goals and thoughts. Next, both employees must set up a common goal which equally responds to the patient's call lights. This way we are focusing on the patient's safety and needs and not our issues. We're focusing on the patient as being our primary priority. If the situation at hand continues to escalate, the manager might need to sit both individuals down at the same time to hear both sides of the situation, so we're not getting any he said, she said, this is what's going on, so at least both parties can tell their side of the story. We need to make sure both of the individuals see each other's point of view, set a common goal between the individuals to make sure the conflict is settled, and then warn both individuals of disciplinary actions that may be necessary if they cannot resolve the conflict. So after the case study, each member gave their insight about the case and how we can apply this to our future work. Amanda stated that when I find myself in conflict with patients or coworkers, I will make sure my top priority is to keep the patient safe. Keeping this in mind, I will be able to set goals between myself and others to achieve my goal. Next, Marissa said, when I run into conflict with a coworker or patient, I will not avoid it. I will use my skills I have learned to de-escalate the situation and find a common ground. If that fails, I will reach out to one of my superiors so that my patient remains safe. And lastly, Ruth stated that when a conflict occurs between me and my coworkers or a patient, I will critically examine myself and work to improve myself in order to be more effective. So after reviewing this case study, we thank you for watching and we hope that this helps you settle a conflict in the future, and our references